If I won Lotto tomorrow...
Lamborghini?
No.
I was sat in the office and I said, I can't believe I'm buying this car. What are you listening for on a vacuum cleaner? How hard it sucks?
How do you have so many cooling hoses? On today's podcast, we have a special guest coming all the way from South Australia. It is one of our first distributors rolling out. It is Simon from Morpowa. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, Simon, how you going?
Good, mate.
All right, so what would be good to go through is some of your background story into, how you got into tuning, how you established, where Morpowa come from. You take us through that and where you want to start. You start.
Morpowa. So my dad originally owned Morpowa.
Yep.
It started in...
So where's Morpowa based, just so everyone knows?
Modbury North. So, Modbury North in South Australia.
Yep.
So, I reckon it was established in 89.
Yes.
So it's been around for 35 odd years.
Yep.
I started there back in 98, I reckon it was. So, when I was younger, less grey hairs.
And so that was when you would have been starting as an apprentice there?
Correct,
Did you work beforehand there?
Yeah, so I actually... I never wanted to touch cars. So when I left school, I really enjoyed doing furniture. So I was a cabinet maker.
Yeah, right.
So I left school, went straight into cabinet making. I did 2 or 3 years in that. And then growing up with cars is my whole life was being around Dad racing, being there on weekends, being there on holidays. My old man owned a service station. So he originally did that. So my weekends... and everything was cars. My dad also raced with my business partner and his business partner at the time, Alan. So for me, I was screwed. I was around race cars. I was around cars. We had boats. Dad built the engines. So I was always with Dad doing that stuff. So the racing, I loved it. Like I can even vividly remember now as a kid going to the racetrack with Dad and cleaning the wheels, taking the bonnet off, making sure the roll cage was pretty and all that sort of stuff. So, riding my bike on the racetrack. So for me, it was always, with Dad and the racing.
Yeah,
so
cool.
that's where it all came from.
Yeah, family.
Yep. And I loved it. I loved doing cabinet making. But then a couple of the techs left and Dad's like, oh, do you want to come across and help out? And I was like, Like I said, I've been around cars all my life, and then I did. I went across, and then the rest was history. So that's how it all started.
So you went off and started your apprenticeship with the old man. Was that a hard thing? Is that something that you feel as though you wanted to do, or more pushed into at the time?
Not pushed into. It was more. The apprenticeship started. I never even actually did my final qualification because I ended up going into running the business.
Yeah.
So and then the performance side came across. Because I had done so much mechanical work previously, I found it boring.
Yeah.
So for me, it was working in the workshop was I didn't enjoy it. And I sort of said to my old man at the time, I said, I want to do something different. And back in those days, there was no getting onto the internet and learning how to tune cars and stuff. So I pushed across into bought a Motec.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm going to fit this onto a car and I'm going to learn how to tune. And
so your old man, you started in that business, so that was just servicing. So Morpowa was just about servicing at that stage, or
wholly and solely servicing.
Yeah.
General mechanical and servicing.
Was it still called Morpowa back then?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
So Morpowa is spelled MORPOWA, and everyone's like, you're retarded, like you can't even spell. But MOR is more, and then the PO is Podlewski, and the WA is the business partner of Alan Ward.
Oh, right.
So PO is Podlewski, WA is Ward. So that's where the spelling of the name comes from, and a lot of people don't get it.
That. Okay, I didn't know that.
That's how the Morpowa name came.
Yeah.
But they were wholly and solely mechanical. That's it.
Okay, and then you rolled in, you're doing mechanical. How did you get into the performance side? Because is that something that you just wanted to go into for more
100%.
interest?
Yep. So
you got your Motec.
Yep. Back in the day
when I was... What car was
that on? That was on a CC Lancer. So back in the 4G93, which we ripped the engine out and went 4G63 as everybody does. And I think I was talking to Ben, Joshy at your work, and they did the same thing. So it snowballed from there. We ripped the motor out, and this was all after hours stuff because my old man's like, if you want to get into it, you got to learn how to do stuff before you can charge customers and rah, rah, rah. Mm-hmm. So we spent hours after hours. Like I'm talking not coming home till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and learning all the ins and outs of engines, wiring, destroying coils, overdwelling them, putting the Motec on.
And they would have been, what, the gold boxes back then?
Yeah, DOS.
Yep.
DOS M4, mate. So,
Yep.
like I was saying to your Josh, there was no getting on the internet and
it's harder.
HP Academy and all that stuff. There was none of that. So I had some really good contacts back in the day through Motec with Mark McCoy, who's gone out on his own now. He's not at Motec, but we became a distributor for Motec back 24 years ago. And then on the road, tuning with a laptop, 2 guys flying around the streets.
It's really funny. It's like most of us actually started there. I think a lot of my speeding finds were from tuning cars, looking at my laptop on my passenger seat and just trying to stay on the road. And it's probably not the ideal thing to do.
No,
but when you didn't have accessibility to the dynos like we have nowadays, it was, they were super expensive back in the day, and it was 100%. Hard to hire one and get on one and understand what was going on. So definitely a challenge. So start off, you're tuning with your Motecs and obviously the Lancers were the things with the Evos and that's where you started. When did you sort of diverse from there and start to branch out into other things that you started diving into? Because I understand that you guys do a lot of Commodore stuff, and I see on your Instagram pages that it's a lot of blown LSs, turbo LS, and you've got a lot of Toyota stuff as well. But how did you branch out from doing your Evos then into all these other cars?
The demographic. So dealing with the import scene just became a nightmare. Not a nightmare. I should say it was hard to deal with the demographic of the younger kids working on their cars coming in, putting them on the dyno, problem after problem after problem.
Fuel system.
And it's your fault. You tuned it, the fuel pump shit itself. That's it. So it was the time spent on vehicles on the dyno was
weren't making money.
Far out. It was crazy. And I look back now and seriously, I don't understand. Well, we were like this. The business was just making ends meet, and you couldn't charge for your time.
I understand. You have the cars on the rollers, and when something goes wrong, you got to try and get through the diagnosing process as 100%. Quick as possible. And usually, it's not one problem; it's usually several problems.
And that's what made us walk away from the turbo import side of things. I did a little bit of motorsport back in the day with drag racing and drifting and bits and pieces, and we moved over to the Holden Commodore market. And I remember my dad. I sort of said to my old man, I said, I'm going to really concentrate on Holden Commodores. Like I want to put all my effort into it. And he thought I was nuts.
Yeah.
He was like, you can't be concentrating on one model. And because we've done everything up until then. And it was the single best thing we ever did.
Yeah.
We became a specialist in it.
Yeah.
We got the wall control distributorship.
Yep.
And then...
And that would have been a pretty big deal back in the day.
It was.
Because that was when Wall Control was just starting to get its legs.
Correct.
And they were starting to do kits for a lot of the Commodores.
And a small family business to invest in some of the stock that they wanted was, back in the day, was huge for us. Like it was a massive investment to hold 100 grand's worth of stock.
Yeah.
It was huge. So it was nervous times, but we've never looked back. So and obviously now with the Just Autos stuff and the Toyota side, it's what we try to do with keeping stock and stuff. But that opened our eyes to having that availability of stock there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Big chewy to chew. So
Commodores, is there something in your particular field as far as tuning goes? Is there something that's iconic to you that you would go, hey, this was a really cool time that, I really enjoyed this era, going through tuning? Was there something that stands out in your mind that when you think back to, what you've done, you go, hey, this was the time that, I really fell in love with it?
Yep.
Is there something like that?
So I come back to when Dad said, you have to learn the craft to be able to charge a customer. He said, you can't just grab a car and charge a customer without knowing what you're doing.
Yep.
And we still use that philosophy now. Like we will not touch a vehicle unless we've R&D'd it or we've tested it or we've owned the vehicle or something like that, because I see too many workshops out there that will tune every vehicle and, they've got R&D this and that. And we stand back, and obviously Josh, our tuner, we know how much we put into the Toyota and how we evolve with that, even with you guys, the evolving. So Dad said to me, you've got to learn what to do. So it went from 4 or 5 guys playing with a Lancer, and we go, we'll go to the drags. Let's see what we do.
Yeah.
And we ran one of the fastest radialed 4-cylinder manual gearbox in Australia, and it was like, shit, we know what we're doing. And then that was where my love for tuning and that want
Passion.
for being the best.
Yeah.
And we want to be the fastest, and it was just like a drug. It was.
You touch on, trying to tune everything, and it's something that I've always struggled with is having that understanding and not knowing everything about what you were doing. And it's something that on a continual basis, and that's one of the reasons we went to it only, was because I needed to make sure that what we were doing, we could do 110%. And trying to tune every model of car, I think it's a stretch for anyone to go, yeah, look, I know everything about everything. It's just too much information.
It's even knowing, like what I was saying to you the other day about, it's all good and proper saying, we can tune a 300 or we can tune a Commodore, or you can tune a Lance or whatever. But knowing the repercussions of the tuning, what is going to be the longevity or what's going to come of tuning the vehicle. So when companies turn around and say, we tune everything, you can tune them, but do you know the consequence of tuning, or do you know what the downfall of oil temperatures
and heaps of things,
so on, so on. And that's where we wanted to just specialise into single vehicle, and why we're sort of concentrating so much on Toyota and the diesel side. Not phasing out Commodore, but
I guess the Commodore, for example, is they're no longer Holdens around, so there's less cars in the market, so it makes sense to then go over. And we've seen in what we do, obviously we specialise in that full drive sort of scene, and I can see that bringing you guys on as a distributor down in South Oz, and then obviously getting more of those sorters in your workshop, it makes sense. And it's kind of cool because you have the outreach of South Australia. There's a lot of Toyota vehicles in South Australia, so it's going to be really interesting to see how the change in your business and what that demographic does, and coming to see you guys.
And we've seen it work already with, and I'll keep harping on the Commodore, but that was our single biggest growth within the business. We doubled our turnover and some. And also the guys in the workshop enjoyed, they were working on a single model, so they knew it inside out, back to front. They were super efficient, and they were awesome.
I guess we talked about that yesterday when we were going through the workshop, and you're like talking about how the boys in the workshop, it just seems calm and everyone's sort of doing it. And it's because it nearly doesn't seem busy because everything is organised and set out. And it's one of those things that has taken me time to get used to because I'm a very reactive person. So when there's an issue with something, I'm just running around like a headless chook. But
you on the phone, mate.
Yeah, so that's me. So to see a workshop in calm, it's great to see, but it all works like clockwork, but you can only get that with, setting certain boundaries and having consistent cars that, that you want to work on and make sure that they are right. And it's also the confidence of doing those cars, knowing that there's something really great about it that I tell people is that rolling into a Toyota, it's nearly like I'm so confident in that car because there's nothing I haven't seen. I've seen it all.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? And it's so easy to go in and go, I know what that is. I know this problem.
And working with a great platform.
Yep.
We spoke about a certain vehicle yesterday that we don't even have in our vehicle in our workshop. Period. So in our workshop we still do general mechanical and maintenance and servicing. And there was a vehicle we spoke about that we don't have in there because we know of the underlying issues that it has from the factory.
Yep.
So then we come along and tune it. You're the devil because all of a sudden the converter shit itself or the turbo shit itself, and it is a known flaw from new. So we don't have those types of vehicles, and Toyota don't have that issue. So
and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we go into Toyota with a reliability issue, and that's what we're sort of based around. I didn't want, obviously, today's discussion to be totally around a biased opinion on Toyota because obviously that's something that we both do.
100%.
But I do honestly believe it's the right car. So what's that vehicle you're talking about? Because I think I know what you're talking about, what car it is, but I'm really curious to see what it actually is. I'm sure everyone
it's one of the biggest selling vehicles in Australia. Well, it is, I think, the number one selling vehicle in Australia is the Ford Ranger, the old 3.2. And we almost got burnt by a customer where we did engine trans tune. And seriously, the customer was a dead set legend. Older guy, retired, converter shit itself. He comes back and he goes, oh, you guys did this, that. It had 100,000 Ks on the clock. And I'm like, well, these have got underlying issues. I said, we're happy to look at it. So we went through the whole process and it was a converter failure. We were just so blessed that the customer did his own research. Went on the net, found out that it was an issue, and then he walked into Ford and he threw his arms up and down, and they covered it.
Yeah.
But it was enough for me, and you understand this in a small business, is if you're replacing
parts,
labour, and it has nothing to do with you, and it's a manufacturer's issue, it's a real kick in the dick.
Well, this is the issue also is that obviously it always happens as soon as we touch a car, we own it, and that's the way they look at it, is the fact that we will get blamed for anything in between. So especially, there's no cars that are out there that are immune from that.
100%.
Every manufacturer has their problems in that, and there's numerous amounts of things with Toyotas that are definitely a known problem.
100%.
And that's
injectors,
still reflect, heaps of things. So it's trying to manage that the best way, I guess. Going to the Ford Ranger, that's interesting because there is some underlying issues there. It's one of the cars that was a big car. Like we used to do a lot of Rangers.
And I'm not saying the Ranger is a pile of shit.
No, it is.
I'm just saying that it's a pile of shit. So I'm just saying that we wanted to eliminate our overheads, and we saw the Ranger as a problem car.
Yeah.
And there's going to be guys out there going, oh, they're fucking idiots and all this sort of stuff. But it was just our own decision to not have that vehicle, to not have to deal with the underlying issue. That was all.
I guess when I started to see, I was pretty heavily repairing transit vans back in the day, right? Believe it or not.
Transit vans.
And it was like, one of the things no one wanted to touch. But, we just had the gear and I knew how to do them. And I just had a lot of them because everyone just was like, nah, not touching it. It's a shit box, right? So when I started to see the Ranger come out with a similar setup that was in that, I'm like, this is just going to be the same problems.
And other workshops have capitalised on that as well.
100%.
So I'm not saying that was just our choice.
It has created a lot of work.
100%. And, guys are upgrading turbos, and they want to work on it. We didn't want to be blamed for the underlying issue through tuning the vehicle. That was it.
The thing you talk about, the converter, I mean, that's one issue with the Sprag and so forth in the, what we call the 609 and all that sort of stuff. But something else that was interesting is the valve bodies in there, even brand new valve bodies, they're where they're leaking and stuff like that from factory and causing issues with shiftings.
The cooler bypass and all that stuff.
It sort of just keeps evolving. Correct. And you just go, and then they have their EGR problems. And I mean, I guess all manufacturers do, and it's really hard as we're sort of putting Ranger and we're pinpointing and saying, hey, these are all the problems with it.
A lot of cars do. And Toyota does as well. You know that, we know that, but I just find they're a better platform to work with
from an engineering base.
Correct.
And that's something that's, when you look through, even Jace from JMax will say the same thing. You go through and you look at how Toyota build their cars, and they're easier to work on.
Show me a range you can go, mate, 340 kilowatts at the wheels, not have a rod fly out of it, or you grab a 79, go bolt a turbo injectors, feed it a bit of boost, and all of a sudden
it comes alive and it stays there.
Correct.
100% without a doubt.
Again, not saying.
I actually am interested to see how the new Ranger goes. Obviously, that V6 motor is from Defender.
I was going to say, aren't they range? Yeah, it's
interesting. The time belt on the back of the cylinder head for the rail pump and stuff like that.
Just to give you a heads up on that, my brother-in-law works for RAA, and there's quite a few of them sitting in the tow area every morning he comes to work.
Right.
So that gives you a bit of a
the problem is, it's sort of funny, we were talking about this the other day with Nissan, and, I started off with the Nissan Patrol well before I had Toyotas, right? And when I go back even to the ZD30, I think that was Nissan's one of their biggest mistakes when they rolled into a Renault engine from, the old TD42. I think they had the opportunity to do some amazing stuff there with probably a new design platform of an engine, but unfortunately it seems to be that every motor that Renault had something to do with in that model of car, there was always
underlying problem.
Something going on there. Even into like the MP300 nowadays, and we still see those niggling problems. And like, as much as they're engineered, when you look at them, you go, man, that's like, it's taken a lot of effort from a lot of people, and there's a lot of money that's been put into them. And it still baffles me how these things still get through and they still have problems with these areas.
And I know there'll be people out there going, these guys are picking on this and that, but I mean, I'll pick on Toyota right now for you. Let's go the 300 series.
Heaps of little problems.
Let's go the chirp.
Yep.
All right, everyone's going to go,
surge, sequential stuff.
You're buying this overpriced Toyota and they can't even get turbochargers right. Well, I guess like I said previously, people have capitalised on the fault of the Ranger. Well, you guys have got a fix for that coming up, which is pretty interesting. So I'm not saying the Toyota is the end all and be all, but I believe the engineering platform right from the get-go was amazing. I think
it's the base and also the resale value of the car. I've always, since I ever started buying Toyota vehicles, I never lost money on those cars. Yeah, you lose the money that you put into them, right? But as far as the value base of that car that you buy it for, you always retain that value, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a nightmare in a business when you're trying to sell a car that you make money on.
I remember I had some friends that wanted to buy a new car, and they were going to buy a Hyundai. I can't remember. I think it was a Santa Fe. And I said, look, I would suggest looking at a Prado. You know what I mean? It's a 150 series. I know you're going to spend another 20 grand to buy this car.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you in 2 years' time or 3 years' time when you want to move it on, it's still worth
You're going to lose 5 grand.
The Hyundai, unfortunately, is not going to be worth anything.
Correct. Yep.
So they bought the Prado. Fair enough, had it for a few years, sold it for pretty much what they bought it for. Great car. They went and bought a Hyundai Santa Fe. It's like they had in their head, that's what they wanted.
Yep.
And that's cool, but you know, I know, as we all do, that that car is going to be worth pretty much nothing in 5 years' time.
Yep.
And that's okay. And yes, it's 20 grand cheaper, but really when you look at the scheme of things, you're losing all that money. Where I look at a Toyota, it's sort of more of an investment that holds its value. And I go, it's
a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yep. So even my wife drove a Volkswagen Touareg.
Yep.
We bought it secondhand.
Cool car.
Oh, love it. Like it's tech-wise and dollar value.
What motor was in that?
The V6 diesel.
Yeah. Because they do the V8 and they also do the V12, don't
Correct. So that was in the older models.
Yeah.
But same thing, we bought that secondhand because when I looked into the Euro market, it's like you buy a car and you lose 50K in 12 months. But even when it comes to selling that, we lost a fair bit. She's jumping into a 300 now. And for that reason is obviously R&D and bits and pieces. But exactly think what you're saying. And when you go to sell the car, you haven't lost nothing, you know, or very little. So, we might spend a shitload on it, but it is what it is.
Because I'm pretty sure the Touareg, they have the same motor as the Amarok. That's
correct.
In that, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think different turbos and bits and pieces, but great cars.
Very similar to the Porsche one as well, the Porsche Cayenne.
Correct.
I think it is.
All
Is that
same
right?
chassis.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we've got an Amarok at work as well.
Yeah.
So we bought one a little while ago.
Yeah.
A while ago. Yeah. Back in 2017. And it's an awesome car.
Yeah, look, actually, the Amarok, when we start talking about, obviously, like the Ranger, and that's a comparable car with sort of same sort of roughly power and so forth, I think the Amarok is probably a better vehicle.
And my God, do they tow.
The Ranger. Yeah, and they've got power.
Amazing. So they're a great car. I do rate the Amarok. I think it's a great car. So, yeah, overall. Yep.
Something that I've always looked through that, I mean, we're talking about cars now, so we'll just keep rolling with that, was Mitsubishi's. I know still a Japanese-made car, not a huge market there for those cars, but I still think for a Japanese vehicle is a very good vehicle, and I think it's underrated a lot.
Yeah, the Triton stung us a few times in the early days, though.
And stuff, I go back to where they had the 3.2 litre, which was a good platform. The 2.5 wasn't the best. No. That was one that was
still can't beat the 4G63.
Yeah. So you're a Mitsubishi boy anyway, through and through, really. But it's funny how those cars in our market didn't really dominate.
Yeah, and take off.
You know, and when you go to places like Thailand and so forth, there's a lot of them. Yeah,
or the D-Max and all that over in
Isuzu. I mean, Toyota's there, but those levels of Mitsubishi and especially Isuzu are pretty big. I think also Isuzu, they definitely make a good platform.
Absolutely.
The JJ,
JJ3
1 and 3. I mean, the 1 has been around for a long time. It's in trucks. It's in a whole lot of different applications. Very known for a reliable engine. However,
make good power.
Yeah, 100% make good power. But even with all that aside, I still come back from a point where we're comparing the 4J back to, say, like a 1KD, for example. 1KD was, in my opinion, still a better built engine than the 4J. The 4J definitely made more power with obviously how hard the spin in the pump from factory and so forth. But as a built purpose thing, 1KD is easy to get around. That motor's piece.
And you have a look at what they do. When you want to lean on them as well.
And they are a very strong setup. And I guess that's one of the things I keep coming back and I go, Toyota just did it simple. Like everything is, easy to get to. It's metric. It just makes sense.
Numerous models.
Yeah. And, there's jobs that are more technical. I think probably the biggest job that I remember doing that starts to get a bit of a pain is like doing a clutch on a V6 RAV4 or something, you know what I mean? And there's just no room. You're pulling everything now, and then you pull the motor off the cradle.
Do mechanical repairs now?
And you're just like, man, I'm just doing this clutch. And it's a mission of a job. There's shit everywhere. I remember younger work on like 300ZX twin turbo thing, and those things are an absolute nightmare. And I reckon that would be probably one of the hardest cars to work on.
We sponsored, so back in the Jap days, we sponsored the 300ZX car club.
All right. Did you have to work on it?
What a fuck up.
What a nightmare. Why did you do that?
I don't know. I think we got dragged into it through a customer and coils and plugs and looms, and there is nothing on a 300 that ZX that you can't touch that doesn't fall to pieces.
I was surprised by the amount of cooling hoses. Like, how do you have so many cooling hoses? Like, they're everywhere. And like anywhere you touch, you're getting cut
Broken.
up. It's just like, you're in there.
If it's plastic, it's broken.
Like, one of my mates did a rebuild on one, and he was just like, man, this is the worst thing I have ever done. Like, this is just full on. It's just full on.
It gives me shivers when you hear that name or that model of car, or we still get customers ring up. It's very few now, but you're like, oh no, we don't touch that.
I remember there was a like a turning point in my career as I was an apprentice, and I think at this time I was about third year. And to be honest, I was grinding away. I never really had the spark to really keep driving. And this was the one point that
were you just doing mechanical repair stuff?
Yeah, just mechanical. Yep. And so this car come in. It was a Hilux Surf with the V6 engine in it, right? I think they call them RV6 or something like that. Right?
Yeah, we had one.
Yeah, and this thing had lived its life on the beach, and it had done a head gasket, and I had to do head gaskets on this motor. And the problem is they run the balance pipe at the back of the cylinder head that joins
We had the same problem with ours.
And I'm just like, holy shit, how do I get this off? Like, I was struggling to get this car apart because every nut was just gone. Yeah. Right.
I actually think we just changed the motor in the end.
I was like, this is a nightmare. And I went home that day and I was like, man, I don't think I can do this. I'm done. Yeah. And I didn't sleep that night because I was just so stressed about this car. How am I going to fix it? And I decided, I come in the morning and I washed it off and I was like, right, cool. I'm just going to hook in and I'm just going to do it. Yeah. And I changed my mindset. And in that point, and I still remember it to this day so clearly, I just looked at it completely different, went, all it is nuts and bolts. That's 100%. All it is. It's like a big Lego set. It has to come apart.
But just get the right process.
And I just like, righto, let's get in. And I just started going through and I ended up getting it all apart and I fixed the whole car up, got it back together and got the whole car running. I had to pull it apart twice because I forgot the O-ring washers on the injectors and stuff like that. But that's another story. But I got there in the end. And by getting there in the end, I was so happy that I achieved something by getting there and getting this car right. Yeah. And just, pushing with it. And then the really interesting thing from that point forward, everything became easier. You know what I mean? Like every job that I started to look at became easier. I definitely didn't want to do another one, right? But
changed your
changed
mindset,
my mindset to doing it. Yeah. And that was something new. So I guess all those jobs, like you say, hey, 300ZX and all of those cars you worked on in the past, they sort of set you up for being a better mechanic because 100%. They push you. And
our boys are amazing. There's nothing that they won't do. They might jump up and down that they've got to do it, but they can do anything. We've been dragged into doing R35 GDRs and bits and pieces like that.
Yep.
And it's because it's a mate and the mate doesn't want to go anywhere else in South Australia. And the next thing we're ripping a gearbox out and an engine out and
nuts and bolts. Isn't it?
Anthony will just jump in, do it. He never asks for help. He will just do the bloody job and off he goes. So, but what I'm saying in that side of things, we don't want to work on those vehicles, but the boys are awesome at doing it. Absolutely awesome.
Cool.
So,
all right, I guess the next thing would be talking about warranties. Yep. It's something that's a subject that gets brought up a lot. We're talking about the Toyotas, the modifications that we do. How does that affect your factory warranty? I don't know. I've done so many videos. I've spoken to so many customers about it. I still get the same question over and over again.
It's our number one asked question in our workshop.
I totally understand because you've invested, over $100,000 most of the time into a car.
Yep.
You've poured more money into it, and the last thing you want to do is put all your trust in with the company. Something go wrong with that car, and then now you've got no warranty on it. So something that I found that I come back down to is people need to understand that doing any modification to your car, there is 100% a possibility that you won't have warranty. It's 100%. As simple as that.
Yep, well,
how do you find, like, being down where you guys are, is it much the same?
It's obviously you get the customer that will just modify their vehicle. They're going to modify their vehicle, but then you've got on the other side, a lot of customers are concerned, and so would I. If I was a consumer on the opposite side of the table and not being me, you've just poured it. Buy 300 GR Sport. What are they? $150,000.
Yeah, pretty close.
And the guys go, I want to make a little bit more power. I don't want warranty. I can understand the angst that they get about, if I modify this, Toyota's going to wipe me. And we do get asked that all the time. For us, it's not an issue because we know the reliability and we know what we're doing in tuning and with you guys and doing all the products. We know they work, but explaining it to the customer is the hard part because it's their investment and they don't want to lose the warranty because I guess it's a little bit of a safety blanket.
Well, I guess it gives them still the value of the vehicle as 100%.
Well. Yep. And I know you've gone down the path of warranty with the 70.
Yeah, with the 79 series. So we took over, part of that warranty from factory. So it'll be, I think it was 170,000 K. So something along those lines. Don't quote me on that because the paperwork's in front of me. It's all written down. But that was a legit warranty. That's not with like a national warranty company or anything like that. That was our own basically insurance where we put money in there and went, hey, we will cover these vehicles. And the 70 series, we know it's a reliable, and we know that, with the modifications that we do, that the car will just go through and through, One of the things that I stress to people about that are worried about warranty, there's nothing more than I can say to them is making sure that you're maintaining your vehicle correctly and you won't have a problem. 100%. And too many times I see guys are not really up to date or don't have the understanding about what it is to maintain a car. We talk about the handbook and there's a severe conditions in that. Now, if anyone's got a car out there, I suggest them to read the severe condition in their handbook. Now, it's in small writing. It's usually on a D note somewhere, but read that. And when you go through the severe condition, you will find that very little people don't drive in normal conditions. Everyone's driving in severe conditions.
In the little fine print.
And the problem is severe conditions, it's stating that the car needs to be serviced every 5,000 Ks. And there's a lot of other things that come into that. If you're towing on a daily basis, if you're, doing less than 200 Ks of steady state driving, if you're idling the car for too long, there's all these things in there and they say, hey,
fine print.
Here you go, service your vehicle. I honestly believe your warranty is you maintaining your vehicle. That 100%. Is the best way of doing it. Keeping it maintained.
Oil changes.
It's not really that hard as well.
No, it's easy.
I think that's where a lot of people get misled, where it's such an easy thing to do. Yes, I know it's costly, but it is an investment.
Just about to say, and this day in the cost of living, the car's the first thing where people go, it's working, it's fine, I'm not going to service it. And then when it bites them on the arse later on, it's the end of the world. But it's like, well, you didn't maintain it. Listen, I hope the Toyota guys are pretty good. But yeah, like even, dare I say, oil viscosity and types of oils to be used in the cars, make sure they're correct and just keep on top of it.
It's one of the things we have with our loan cars, and one of our first cars that we actually bought, me and my wife, and that turned into a loan car later in its life was a Toyota Echo. And it's funny, we bought that car with I think around 60,000 Ks on it. And I serviced that car every 5,000 Ks. And I think when we actually got rid of it, it had over 300,000 Ks on it, right?
I'm glad you serviced it because my mum never serviced it. And it still went.
Well, the funny thing is that I got to the end and it didn't have an oil leak. It didn't have a problem. It was mint. It ran perfect. And every seal on that engine was still, soft. It wasn't hard because, there's no build up of petrol in the fuel that breaks down all the rubbers and seals. And it just, everything was working correctly. And that shows you that just a little thing like changing oil makes a huge difference for the life of the vehicle. And I think people underestimate that. And I think it's also misleading from a manufacturer to bring a car out saying, hey, we got, cap price servicing, which is fantastic.
Every 15,000?
But then, 100%. And these service intervals are so long out. And to get the service cost down on the car to be cheap to either sell to fleet companies or whoever it may be, it sounds good at the time, but unfortunately the reality of that is that, hey, they really need to be saying you need to be servicing your car here. And I think if they did that, the consumer would have less problems with 100%. The car moving forward. But, the downside is that you usually find that the cars that people buy only have them for a small period of time. They've moved them on, and unfortunately, it's the second person that gets the problems with that sort of way of doing it.
We come back, bring up the LS, and we do a lot of cam packages and stuff. The moment we pop those rocker covers off, we look at the casting and we can see the staining. We know the moment we get them off what the maintenance period's been on that vehicle. We know that when we slip that camshaft out, it's going to have screwed cam bearings. Then you get the other car on the other side, you pop it off and it's pristine. And from the time that rocker cover comes off, and if you could stress that to customers and go, well, here's an example. Here's a photo of a non-maintained car and here's a photo of a maintained car. But some customers just don't want to do the oil changes.
So there was something that we were touching on yesterday with oils, where the 300s, and we've got a motor apart at the moment having a look at that. And something that was brought to our attention is that every 300 series is coming into the country with a 020 oil. And it was something that...
Wasn't sure if we could talk about this or not.
And it's something that we've invested a fair bit of time and effort into understanding on this, right? And I think it's worthwhile talking about it, is overseas in the UAE market, a lot of the guys are running a 530 or a 540 oil. And it's interesting because their climate's a lot hotter than ours. Now, the 020, I believe that the oil was put into these engines to pass a certain emission standard. You got, parasitic losses are less with that
better
oil.
Fuel efficiency.
All that sort of stuff is definitely better by running that. However, the downside to a 020 oil is that you cannot remove heat from an engine, and it's something that's a huge problem now. When you start to looking at oil temperatures, I mean, you were mentioning something yesterday which we know about, but you backed it up by when you were racing, if the oil temp gets around that 135 degrees, you throw it in the bin, it's gone, it's done.
It's replace it, especially in high stressed engines, and a lot of the new engines coming out are pretty efficient and making substantially good power compared to what we had 10 years ago. The oil viscosity on these cars, I think, are critical.
Yeah, and we used to know that running a 020 oil, depending on the bearing clearance, was important, because you can't just go and run a 1540 or a 2050 and just go, it's going to be fine. And when we talk about the bearing clearance, we're talking about between the crank and the bearing itself.
The cushioning.
And, trying to get the oil in there, because what happens if you go to a 2050, obviously you can't get the oil in there, and you're going to have problems where you're going to do bottom end damage and so forth. It's crazy to think that the 020 is an oil. If you're not towing with a vehicle, you're a soccer mum and you're driving around, and you got to also understand that these cars are only holding roughly 5 litres of oil now in the sump instead of the 8.5 that they were. So you're driving around with, usually if that car's used a litre or a litre and a half oil in between its service interval,
and
10,000
let's be honest,
Ks.
they do use some oil.
So you've got now only 4 litres of oil in the sump, and you're driving around, and now you're still a 020 oil. You go put your van on for the weekend, you've got these extreme temperatures, and you have no weight in the oil to pull the heat away. And one of the biggest efficient ways to cooling an engine is through oil. It's actually one of its main designs. It is there for lubrication, of course, but it's there to pull heat out of those pistons and so forth. And when you can't do that, that is a problem. So it's something that we were very sus on at this day, at the earlier stages of the 300 series. So we always recommend a 530 moving forward as a minimum.
And we're saying that to our customers as well.
In my own cars that I tow, I use a 540. And that is actually stated in the handbook. When you read Toyota's handbook, it states if you're towing with a vehicle or doing any type of work, you need to be running these oils.
Especially when you're running into 35, 40 degree days.
100%.
And you've got 3.5 ton block.
We're never really in that sort of negative 4 degrees where a 020 is really coming into play. And if we are, it's such a short amount of time. So you still, even in that condition, I still believe you should be running a 530. The 020s is a concern for me and for the public that, we're not talking just about the 300 series, but I think we were talking on the Chevs as well with the Duramax is coming out. They're now coming out with the 020. I believe they're having problems with lifters and so forth.
Other thing people have to understand is more power is more heat. It's just the byproduct, isn't it? So we come along and tune them, and guys are demanding more of the motors whilst they got 3.5 ton behind them. It's generating heat. You've got to compensate that in your oils and your viscosities that you're using in these engines.
I think it just all comes down to customer awareness, and that's why when we talk about warranties and you're looking at your handbook, you really need to read it and make sure that you're doing the right thing by the car. And
I'm pretty sure in the Toyota handbook it states viscosities for the 300, doesn't it?
It does. So it says in there what the car comes with. It also states if you were towing or doing anything,
and what it should have in it.
530 or 540 going forward.
And still the servicing at the moment is still using a 020.
And still every car that I see, we were every Toyota that I've seen come into my workshop as a 020 in it. I still believe that when you look up, say, a Castrol, an oil company book, and you have a look in there, it is still their recommended oil from the first oil to put in that car. Look, that's what Toyota state. It is their recommended oil. However, it's only their recommended oil.
It's not what it says in the handbook.
For not what 90% of Australians are doing with their vehicle.
Correct.
They're towing. So that's not the recommended. So it nearly needs to be rewritten to be a little bit clearer for the consumer, because I feel sorry for them, because they're just being led. And to be honest, when you go to a mechanic shop,
using the oil in their car.
Does anyone, when you go get your car service, they come up to you and go, mate, I noticed the tow bar and the camera plug and the Anderson plug. Do you tow with your car?
35.
And they go, yeah, man, every day. And I go, well, man, you need to run this oil. So we're putting this oil in it. But they don't. It's, Toyota recommend this oil. This is what we're going to put in 020.
So we got a brand spanking newie sitting on the hoist. And it's going to have a 540 put in it straight away.
So all of my cars have that. Even my new Tundra, the Tundra overseas, have had some problems with machining. Actually, my Tundra is the one of the 100,000 that are in
Get
that
the recall. Send it overseas to get it recalled.
No, it's not going anywhere. But we've already done some tests on that, and we're running a 540 oil, and I don't have any contamination. Everything seems to be fine there, and I still believe, again, there's probably more to that.
That was a swarf contamination, weren't they?
And I've seen some photos and so forth, and we did a fair bit of diving in it to have a look at what was going on. I am like 100% a little bit suspicious about the whole thing. And the two things is there's some aluminium swarf. 100% aluminium going through a motor. It's not great.
No.
But if you've serviced vehicles and you've really dived in, brand new cars I've seen come through, and I've seen swarfed in the filter on the brand new.
We're talking about in the 70s, weren't we?
Yep. And I've seen it, and you go, okay, there is swarfed in there. It is aluminium.
Yep.
It's not bearing material. So you go, okay, well, that's definitely from a manufacturing process that's happened. Does it affect the car long term? Well, no. I've seen them keep going. There's no problems, and I think if you stripped it down, you'd be struggling to find where that came from, and it can be from those cleaning processes.
I guess at the end of the
stuff
day,
like
you've got strain pickup and filters, and we do the same with race engines, so to speak. We always cut the filter open and have a look, and you sometimes shit yourself what you see.
Yep.
You sort of look and you go, oh, where is this and what is it?
And so that's where I sort of look in it. And the reason why I think is that there's something a little bit more there is because I can see the oils that are in those cars, and the same the Tundra, they come with 020, right? And so here they are, they're in America.
Interesting to see if the recalled engines have a different oil viscosity.
Well, it's really interesting that out of all those engine platforms, there's a lot that haven't had any problems. And I still believe that is, weather dependent and driving conditions and what you're doing with that vehicle.
Like we were talking about over in UAE, the temperatures that those cars are put through, even with your heat exchangers, you run fans 100%. And all that stuff.
And those guys are running like 540s oils. Yeah. And that's because their days, even in winter, they're getting up to 40 degrees.
Correct.
Like it's crazy and how hot it is.
Belting in the sand dunes.
It's the worst condition. It's way worse than towing. It's continual load on the car. They never get a break, and it's stinking hot.
And they're tuned.
Yeah, and they're tuned. And they're running 540s. Yep. And it's really interesting. You go, well, how come they're not having problems? Like, why are they not? Well, how do they get excluded from the rest of the world? And yet they're doing this. So there's some interesting things about that while we look back and go, well, if you sort of collect all that information and you make your sort of own mind up about it, sometimes that's the bad thing about the internet. It can sort of put blinkers on and make you look in a certain direction. Yeah. And then you sort of have to come back and bring it back to sort of more common sense and go, hang on, you get all these little variables together and experience and time with these cars, and you go, hang on, what is the actual problem?
But even experience with like your background, our background and so on, where you know what oils have to do in high performance situations, you're asking a lot of oil. Like the power you put out, the temperatures that they're going through. So why not match the oil to what the engine is doing?
100%.
And then you'll find a lot of the problems will disappear.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's a pretty big subject. I don't think enough people really know about it.
I'll let you do your own podcast on that one, all right? And you can dive real deep into that and cause the controversy.
We got a tech line that we put out on our website, which explains to the customers 300 series is we advise them to read their handbook if they're towing, only because it was only brought to my attention by reading the handbook. I was like, hey, I don't believe that this is common knowledge.
Yep.
And it's only because we were seeing dealerships still putting 020 in these cars.
And the fact that you guys have gone a step further and pulled engines down and seen what is happening. We got, and again, R&D.
We've actually got an engine there that the customer, it only had 10,000 kilometres on the car.
Yep.
There's one we put on the dyno, and as soon as we jumped off the dyno, we noticed that this engine was making some funny noises. It was really odd. Customer was really good, and I said, hey, look, I don't want to send you back to Toyota because I want to see if this is a problem that we've caused. So I'm happy to buy the engine off you and we'll fit it all. There's nothing going to be a problem. And he was like, yep, that's cool. He was really happy. Luckily, awesome guy to deal with, no dramas.
Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
100%. So I pulled the motor out and we flipped it over. And as soon as I looked at the bottom end, I felt so relieved because it was nothing that we had done.
Correct.
It was an oil starvation issue.
I was shocked when I saw it.
The girdle plate is half worn out. It was
blackened.
It was completely gone. Now, the sad reality to do this is, again, when you look back and you go, well, here's a car in the first part of its life, 10,000 K intervals, it's driving. Now, they used oil in that first 10,000 Ks, so there's a chance there that's running around with very low oil. And when you start saying 5 litres overall and it uses 2,000 Ks, let's say it uses a litre every 5,000 Ks, which is not a hell of a lot, right?
And I've noticed in the 300s after the 10,000, 15,000 Ks, they start to taper off.
And being a steel piston and stuff like that, you have to expect that there's going to be some bedding procedure changer that's going to be with
100%.
that. And it's really interesting having a look at that bottom end. We could see that there was so much bearing material in there. We ended up, going through and I actually got a third party to do investigation on that to verify what we were looking at. They come down to two things, which was going to be a lack of oil
Quantity.
supply.
Yep.
And then obviously the issues with the oil quality as far as being a 0-20 was things. Now, we can't blame 0-20 for the problems with that car particularly, but I do believe that car has been running around with low oil, got an oil surge. And once you start a problem in the bottom end where you're wearing that bearing out, then it's an ongoing issue.
It's only a matter of time.
So, we're going to do a video on that motor come up soon to showcase some of the things with the reason why we do certain things.
And guys have to also understand four-wheel driving, you're not sitting on a flat ground.
Yeah.
You're up on angles, you're going up hills.
Totally.
And if you've lost 1.5 litres or 2 litres of oil, and it's not hard to dip a dipstick.
100%.
Have a quick check, top it up.
I think the problem is that when you buy a brand new car, it's not what you just don't expect to do. You just go, okay, I don't have to do this. I just jump in the car and drive it.
Oh, this car should be perfect.
I don't want this issue. I don't want these problems.
I should be able to do 15,000 Ks and not have to touch it.
100%. So I do see this. It comes down to education. I think if you're buying any particular car, it doesn't matter if it's a Toyota or a Nissan or whatever, I think education on that car, reading the handbook is fantastic because it does outlay a lot of the things in the handbook.
And even us. Letting the customers know.
100%.
When they roll in now, after verifying and seeing, the first thing I'm going to be saying to all the 300 customers is, this is what we recommend.
And I guess that's the same old story is that if you had a rotary, you're not going to take it to a guy that tunes Skylines and say, hey, mate, can you tune my rotary?
Hey, I tuned a rotary.
Okay, right. Cool. I'm just saying. But
it survived somehow. 20B, I don't know how it survived, but it did.
But the thing is, if you go to a specialist in that area,
Correct.
it makes a hell of a difference because there's things that they've seen, because of the volume of cars they've seen is going to be a big difference.
Coming back to the specialists of that vehicle.
100%. Yeah.
Single vehicle or specialist in Toyota knows the Toyota.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, look, for us with that particular engine, the customer was really happy at the end of the day. He's got no problems, still got warranty, everything's all good, and that's all fine. Yes, it cost us an engine, and it wasn't our fault. But my biggest fear was,
but the best thing about that is now knowing.
Oh, well,
that's to be able to walk in that room now and look at it with you and go, wow.
100%. To be able to, if that car had gone to Toyota, right, the motor would have been changed out most probably, and I would have never known what the issue was. And that's always my biggest fear is that, going into any situation like that, never knowing the outcome. How do you learn from that?
So I'll come back to the reason, and this is off topic a little bit, to be aligned with you guys. We don't have that ability, or we don't have that mass of vehicles coming through our shop at the moment. So being aligned with Just Autos when it comes to the R&D side of these cars. And I think I spoke to you yesterday about it. There's not very many shops that have gone as far as, well, I don't think there'll be any shop in Australia that's gone as far as what you guys have gone with the investigating side, from heat exchangers. You guys have even looked through the turbochargers, intake pipes, pulled engines apart. It's pretty rare to find a shop that that's gone that far in that platform.
Yeah, look, again, it's always that hunt for trying to be better and understanding, and I think that's what drives you. When we start looking at the 300 series platform in itself, it's something that I love that car. I love the motor, the size of it, the power that it can give you. Everything about it, I definitely have a soft spot for it. But on bias, it's really hard to take my opinion on it. I guess we spend so much time on that platform looking at it, and we're still doing the same sort of R&D on like the N80 Hiluxes, but we know where the limitations are because that motor's been out for a few years. There is some things that have changed in it, but we get through those processes pretty quickly.
And the confidence in the 300 is now growing. Obviously, let's rewind 3 years ago.
Everyone hated it.
Tell me a 200 series customer that wanted a 300, and I can categorically tell you now. I was sitting in Peter Kittle's office at Kittle Toyota and buying our first 300 3 years ago, whatever it was when they first came out, and I was sat in the office and I said, I can't believe I'm buying this car. Our 200 series, it's heaps better, and why am I buying it? I drove it for 3 or 4 weeks, and we had our 200 series at the same time, and it wasn't until we'd been in that car for a month and then jumped back into the 200 that I was like, this is a fucking fossil. Like just the drive quality, the dash, the steering wheel, the seats, the seating position, everything. it took to be in that vehicle for a while to then jump back into it to go, this thing's bloody good.
Well, I think every model has that. Like, even if you go back to Holden, I remember when, I loved the VS model shape, right? And I thought it was better than the V. I just liked the VS. It just looked better, the square sort of shape. And then they went into VT, and I was just like,
the rounded.
What have they done? I'm like, they have totally it looks like a cockroach.
But let's rewind. Let's rewind to when the 200 series came out.
Totally. Well, from the 100 series, everyone was like, nah, it's
this
shit,
is junk.
it's crap.
Yep.
And then same thing with the 300 series. Obviously,
and that's what I'm saying about now we're getting so much more inquiries because people are noticing they're a bloody good car.
Yeah. And look, one thing you are right when you touch on is that for anyone that's got a 200 series that was thinking about buying a 300 series, you've already bought it, right?
Absolutely.
But do yourself a favour and getting one and drive it. And I guarantee you, when you jump back in your own car and you go, it's I still like the sound of my 200. And yes, that is something that I do miss.
Yep, right? I agree. I absolutely agree.
But the 300 series is such a nice car to drive. It's even if I won Lotto tomorrow and I had an option to buy any car on the market right now.
Lamborghini?
No, I'd still buy a 300 series. Look, I'd definitely have a Lamborghini in the shed for sure, but I would definitely go out and I would have a 300 series.
Yeah.
And that's honest truth because
they're
I do
good
enjoy
for everything. Like,
100%.
Just driving, you can forward drive, you can tow, you can do everything.
Yeah.
But I'm just seeing the growth in the 300 series now versus prior. And what customers were saying, they're this, they're that, they're this. That whole mindset has now changed.
100%.
And people now know that it's the car to have. So
yeah, definitely. I guess, part of the reason why you're here this week was to do the training with us to become a distributor for Just Autos in South Oz.
Yep.
It was something that we've had so many applications of people, and we've had a relationship for the last couple of years.
Yep.
So for me, it was a no-brainer to have you guys on board. Morally, ethically, we align with each other.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the most important thing that I've been looking for with any other company to represent, our products and us. So we couldn't be happier having you guys on board. I guess for the people out there, it'd probably a good time to explain how that relationship works and a little bit more in detail. And so, we're going to have our sales team up here in the Queensland, which have our products. So we do more of the R&D on the vehicles and so forth. And we're able to offer your customers the same packages, obviously supplied, fitted, and all done by you guys down there.
Yep.
And that is something that is pretty unique because it's like we're a big extension of a family.
Correct.
Even though we're in two different places, we have the ability to, make sure that the customers are satisfied.
And that's not something we've taken lightly either, like in the respect of getting on board with the right company. And we've been dealing now for 3 years. But the growth of the packages now, the proven growth of the packages was one of the reasons we were like, we go back to the Walkinshaw side of things.
Yeah.
And the Walkinshaw product worked. And that's why we've sort of jumped on board or wanted to jump on board with you guys to bring that product to South Australia.
And I guess the thing is that, like I was mentioning it to you yesterday, that's really important to me. And this is definitely, the truth of everything is, we're not about mass market, about producing products for everyone in the world to do. We're about doing things right. And it's a slow and steady step and making sure that we put our best foot forward always. Yep. And the customers are our future. So I want to do whatever I can to make sure that they have the best experience and best product possible.
And the support.
And the support with that. And that's why we're always continually stepping forward. So, I'm super excited to have you guys, obviously, down in South Oz. It's miles away from us. So, for people that are definitely traveling, they've got those options to be able to stop in if they have problems.
And that's what our customers ask as well about a dealer network. To have that support nationally, I think is worth its weight in gold. If a customer, and let's face it, you're not going to go into 150,000 Ks without a problem if you're traveling around Australia. So to have that network around Australia, to be able to be supported through the same morals is worth its weight in gold for the customers.
And definitely, and I guess it's unique with the agreement that we have because it's not a franchise, and it's something that, we both need to work out to make it work. And I think that's what makes it so special as well.
It's been a journey.
So, and I mean, how have you found, obviously the last couple of days, it's been pretty overwhelming because we've been handing you guys with so much different information. Yep. I know, we've touched on, it's probably more of the running and structure. Correct, and how we do things.
And for us, it's an eye-opener. to see the size of you guys and how you operate. It's good. It was great. So, and for us to see how you do things, the tuning, the workshop from sales all the way through to the handover, is something we want to bring, or we're going to bring into the SA platform for the Toyota customers on the 300s and all the other products.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
So curious to see the full drive market down in South Australia. Obviously, I've only been there once in my life, right? Coming or living in Queensland most of my life, the full drive industry, everyone's coming through doing the Cape, Fraser, Morton. There's, so many trips up north that everyone does. And you're coming from like South Australia, like, is the full drive industry like big there? Like,
absolutely.
What do people do?
Yeah, it is. It's huge. And there is so much to do in SA and where to go and the trails to do. A lot of guys do like to travel, and we get a lot of our local guys heading out interstate, but there is still so much to do. We've even got, the full drive parks and bits and pieces where guys go and enjoy, where they can do it in a safe manner and even be taught to do it.
Yeah.
But we also get a lot of farmers. Yeah. So we got a lot of farmers out north, and they will have their 70s done. Obviously 70 is life for them. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
But then the wife and their daily driven car or their car on the weekend is the 300.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is still huge. Like, we've got such a big market in SA, and I still believe Toyota is one of the biggest vehicles in South Australia.
All right. So next question would be, what car do you drive currently?
Hi-Ace.
A Hi-Ace fan.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is the Toyota, so that's a good thing. And the 300.
Joshy 200, Anthony 76. Yeah. So it's Toyota. Everyone drives
Isn't
Toyota.
It funny, because you guys are definitely, V8 heads, and you love your powers and stuff like that, and you're all driving
I'll throw
Toyotas.
a spanner in the works. We've never owned a car. Actually, my old man owned a Commodore, but that was it.
Yeah, really?
So,
wow, that's crazy.
Yep. So no, we all drive Toyotas.
And
I guess it's one of the reasons we've jumped on board with it, because we know reliability in that side of it. But yeah, the GR Sport 300, the Hi-Ace, Joshy's 200 series, Anthony 76 series. So and it's pretty good, because we test our stuff on our own cars.
Yep.
Anthony couldn't wait to throw your airboxes on, exhaust systems.
Yep.
Josh uses his car for so much R&D on transmission stuff on his 200.
Yep.
And obviously the 300 and the Hi-Ace.
Yeah.
Hi-Ace is gun.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's good. It's
Your
funny.
70 sounded just like it, mate.
Yeah, look, it's funny with the Hi-Ace is like the seating position of them, like you're being over like that.
I just jumped in your GR and I couldn't, your little Corolla Yaris thing, I couldn't even look out the window.
I know, it's different. It's definitely different.
40-foot window in the Hi-Ace. So.
Yeah, it definitely is different.
But we've been tuning that as well. That's been a bit of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
All right, probably getting closer to the end of the podcast now. And this question I ask a lot of the guys along the way about electric, because it gets brought up so much in the media, and everyone's betraying that it's going to take over the world and it's going to be this big thing. So I always like to hear everyone's opinion on what that will be. Like, I've got my own, but where do you think, I guess, the future will be for the automotive industry, and will electric be in that place?
Oh, I hope not. But hey, it's got its place I'll come back to us having a chat about the Tesla and driving them. And don't get me wrong, they are an exhilarating car.
Yep.
They're just soulless and feel like a deadbeat vehicle where, they're great. Like, they go.
Yep.
That's all they do.
I guess the thing is when we're starting to look at the market with electric, there was always that big push that, electric cars are going to take over all of our cars that we have.
Yep.
And it's funny,
it's not at the moment, is it?
Well, the problem is that it's all about infrastructure.
Correct.
And it takes a long time to build infrastructure for these vehicles.
But I've even looked at some of the new releases of Toyota, like Toyota's little 4-cylinder internal combustion engine, which they're now developing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the manufacturers are still sticking with internal combustion, alternative fueling.
Yes, 100%.
But they're not. Everyone's said they're dead. I don't think they're dead, because if Toyota and the likes of all those manufacturers are still working with hydrogen, whatever it will be,
carbon
and they've
fuels,
still
100%.
got internal combustion engines coming forward.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think there is a place for electric.
Yeah,
totally do.
I think in cities, is it Germany that have them in the city? You're not allowed combustible
Not allowed to go in. Correct.
Yeah,
isn't there a border or something?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think I'm probably sure someone knows a lot more about that than I do.
Yeah.
But
travel out the back.
100%. So I think city-wise, I think if you lived in the city, or you're commuting to, say, from sunny coast, Gold Coast to Brisbane, where you're along those highways areas for where we are, I think having a Tesla or something like that would be fantastic. We were talking about the other day, and I've driven the 100D and the 95, and also the Model 3s, and I've driven a couple of the Porsche variations, and The electric cars, in my opinion, they are amazing in acceleration. Like
Absolutely.
from 50 kilometers onwards, it's mind blowing how cool they are to drive.
And like we said, from the factory.
From the factory, beautiful. I think electronic wise, the technology that's in them is really cool. I don't like the fact that you can't really customize. Every Tesla looks the same. Besides the color, they're all the same.
And maybe a wheel.
And the thing is, it takes away, I guess, our personality in the car when manufacturers tend to do that.
Like,
no noise.
And again, my whole life has been tuning to hear it, or the byproduct of tuning is a noise. You know, like we're always listening for things when we're tuning, and what are you listening for in a vacuum cleaner? Like how hard it sucks, or
well, yeah. I mean, I guess it gets a little bit to the point where it takes the fun out of driving. And I guess I like driving. I really do like driving. I hate being a passenger in a car. I always want to drive.
It still cracks me up. They got generators out there to tune these cars on the skirts and
to get them charged up.
You know,
it's,
and
it's really funny because, you know, that is where it's hits a wall. And when you get remote areas and so forth, especially farmers, they won't be going to that anytime soon. I just don't see how it would be a viable
You talk to a
option
farmer
for
about
them.
it.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
No.
But you never know where it may go, but it'll be interesting to see. So interesting that South Oz has that still demographics for full driving. Obviously, it's an Australian thing. It's interesting to see all the different states through Australia and
towing.
Malaysia.
Like let's face it, how many people jump in their van now and have that ability to travel around Australia and see it with their four-wheel drive. And you look at vans. What's happening with caravans these days? They're getting bigger. They're freaking houses on wheels.
100%. It's that wild.
You now need a good car to tow your house around to go and see Australia. So I don't think it's going anywhere, to be perfectly honest.
All right, so the last thing we do is some rapid fire questions. So you just have to answer one or the other, which one it is. So, all right, Land Cruiser or Patrol?
Land Cruiser.
It's a given, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Yeah, coffee snob, you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love my coffee too. Sand or dirt?
Dirt.
Okay.
With the motorbikes?
Mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Are you as close to ocean where you are?
No, we're not far. Adelaide's tiny. You can be on one side of the place and get to the other side in 45 minutes.
Fair enough. No, that's
not too bad.
Are you a morning person or a night person?
Night.
Yeah, okay. Manual or automatic?
Auto.
Now. Petrol or diesel?
Diesel.
Okay. LS or Barra?
What do you think?
LS. Yeah. Cats or dogs?
Dogs, absolutely.
Yeah. Beach or bush?
Bit of both.
Okay, cool. Here's a good one. Turbo or supercharger?
Oh, depends on the application.
Come on, just pick one.
Turbo. But for a road car, supercharger.
Yeah. Oh, it is a hard one to think.
So I said has its place.
I love turbo because it's like free power. I hate the fact that you lose something with a supercharger, but I love the response of a supercharger.
So that's
it's sort of like,
if you want big power, you go turbo. If you want response and drivability, you go supercharger.
100%. All right, pizza or steak?
Steak.
Ram or Ford?
Ram.
Caravan or camping?
Camping.
Cool. All right, mate. Well, that's pretty much it. So thanks for coming in.
No worries.
I appreciate you guys, flying all the way up here and spending some time with us and going through the training and actually putting the effort in. And it's amazing to see, how much pride you guys have got in what you guys do. And it's one of the main reasons we put you guys on. So to align ourselves with you guys is a no-brainer for us. So I appreciate you guys, spending the time and putting the effort in. So
we appreciate coming up.
Thanks for coming. And hopefully your trip back is safe.
Thanks, mate.
All good.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so that was an interesting story from Simon at Morpowa. I'm stoked that they've come all this way up to go through, and it was really cool listening to the story about where they come from and how we work together. I hope you liked it as much as I do. If you like this content, please like, share, subscribe, and have a good day.